Millionaire mocked the Maid. Dance the tango and I'll marry you. He never knew her secret. The opulent ballroom of the Vanderlyn estate shimmered under 1,000 crystal tiers of the chandelier. Silk gowns whispered against marble floors, champagne flutes clinked like delicate bells, and the air hummed with the low thrum of old money and older secrets. At the center of it all stood Julian Vanderlyn, heir to a shipping empire, his tailored tuxedo as sharp as his reputation for arrogance. His gaze, cold and assessing, swept the room like a predator surveying its territory. Then it landed on her. Elena stood near the grand staircase, a ghost in the gilded cage. Her simple light blue maid's uniform and her white apron was immaculate, her posture rigid with the invisible weight of servitude. She was refilling a tray of canapes, her movements efficient, silent, utterly forgettable to the glittering throng. Except to Julian. He'd noticed her quiet grace before, a flicker of something beneath the subservience that pricked his pride. Tonight, fueled by expensive whiskey and the intoxicating power of his own wealth, he decided to extinguish it. Elena. His voice, amplified by the sudden hush he commanded, cut through the murmur. Heads turned. Conversations died. All eyes fixed on the small figure by the stairs. Elena froze, her knuckles white on the silver tray. Julian strode towards her, a cruel smile playing on his lips. He stopped inches away, towering over her. Still polishing the silver, my dear? Or perhaps dreaming of something grander? He let the implication hang, thick and suffocating. A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the onlookers. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with morbid fascination. Elena kept her eyes downcast, her voice barely a whisper. "Just doing my job, sir." "Your job," Julian repeated, drawing the word out like a blade. He turned dramatically to the assembled guests, his arms wide. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold the ambition of our humble staff. Tell me, Elena." He spun back, his eyes glinting with malicious amusement. "What is it you truly desire? A raise, a day off, or perhaps—" He paused for maximum effect, his smirk widening into something truly ugly. "You fancy yourself a lady, dream of stepping out of the shadows." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a stage whisper that carried perfectly. "Tell you what, prove you belong in this world, not just scrubbing its floors. Dance the tango with me. Right here, right now, and if you don't make a complete fool of yourself." He let the sentence dangle, then finished with a flourish that silenced the room completely. "I'll marry you." The gasp was collective. Shock, disbelief, and cruel anticipation hung heavy in the air. Julian threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "What do you say, Maid? A chance to trade your apron for a diamond the size of a pigeon's egg? Go on, the orchestra is waiting." He gestured grandly towards the musicians, who shifted uncomfortably. Humiliation burned Elena's cheeks like acid. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage of bone. She saw the pity in some eyes, the undisguised glee in others, Julian's triumphant sneer. "Marry you?" The thought was absurd, offensive. But the challenge, the sheer public dare, it ignited something deep within her, a spark long buried under layers of necessity and survival. She didn't look up, she didn't speak. Slowly, deliberately, she placed the tray of canapes on a nearby table. The silence was absolute, broken only by the rustle of her uniform as she straightened. Then, with a movement so smooth it seemed to defy gravity, she turned to face Julian fully. Her eyes, when they finally lifted to meet his, were no longer downcast. They were dark pools of liquid obsidian, burning with a fire that stole his breath. The playful cruelty vanished from Julian's face, replaced by a flicker of unease. "What is this?" Without a word, Elena walked past him, not towards the dance floor, but towards the grand piano in the corner. She murmured something to the startled pianist. He blinked, then nodded, his fingers hovering over the keys. A single deep resonant note echoed through the hall, the unmistakable opening chord of Astor Piazzolla's Libertango. Then, Elena moved. It wasn't the hesitant shuffle Julian expected. It was a storm contained within human form. She flowed onto the center of the marble floor, her simple black dress suddenly seeming less like a uniform and more like the sleek, powerful lines of a dancer's gown. Her posture transformed, spine straight as a blade, shoulders back, head held high with an innate regal authority that silenced every snicker before it could form. The piano began, joined by a lone, mournful bandoneon that seemed to materialize from the shadows. The music was raw, passionate, aching with longing and defiance, and Elena became the music. Her feet, clad in simple black shoes, became instruments of precision and fire. She stamped, slid, pivoted with impossible grace, her movements sharp yet fluid, a perfect blend of controlled fury and desperate beauty. Her arms carved the air, not with the stiff formality of ballroom, but with the raw, expressive lines of authentic Argentine tango. Every step, every flick of her wrist, every intense, unwavering gaze she cast towards the stunned Julian spoke volumes. "You see me now." The room was utterly transfixed. The wealthy elite, accustomed to polished, predictable performances, were witnessing something primal, something real. Tears welled in the eyes of elderly dowagers. Men forgot their cigars. The air crackled with the sheer, unadulterated power of her performance. She wasn't just dancing, she was telling a story of hidden depths, of resilience, of a spirit that refused to be crushed by circumstance. Julian stood frozen, his earlier bravado utterly evaporated. His face was pale, his usual arrogance replaced by dawning horror and a profound, unsettling awe. He saw not a maid, but a force of nature. He saw the years of discipline, the passion, the artistry that his careless words had mocked. The "marry you" taunt now felt like ash in his mouth, a grotesque insult to the magnificent creature before him. He wanted to look away, but he was pinned by the intensity of her performance, by the sheer weight of his own stupidity. The music swelled to its climax, a cascade of notes that mirrored the turmoil in the room. Elena executed a final, breathtaking sequence, a series of rapid giros, turns that blurred her form, ending in a dramatic quartet, one leg extended, her body arched back, her eyes locked directly onto Julian's. The final dissonant chord hung in the air, vibrating with unresolved tension. Silence. Profound, deafening silence. Then, as if released from a spell, the room erupted, not with polite applause, but with a roaring, thunderous standing ovation. People stamped their feet, shouted brava, tears streamed down faces. The musicians, overwhelmed, joined in the applause, their instruments momentarily forgotten. Elena slowly straightened, the fire in her eyes banked, replaced by a weary dignity. She gave a small, formal bow, not to the crowd, but to the music, to the art. Then she turned and walked calmly back towards the service entrance, her head held high, ignoring the outstretched hands and awed whispers. "Wait." Julian's voice, raw and desperate, cut through the lingering applause. He stumbled forward, his usual confidence shattered. "Elena, please." She paused at the edge of the ballroom, near the heavy velvet curtain leading to the kitchens. She didn't turn, but her voice, clear and steady, carried back to him. "The offer, Mr. Vanderlyn, was contingent on me not making a fool of myself. I believe I fulfilled my part." There was no triumph in her tone, only quiet finality. But some things, once offered in mockery, lose all value, even a diamond. She disappeared through the curtain, leaving Julian standing alone in the center of his glittering world, the echo of her words and the phantom heat of her performance burning in the suddenly cold, empty space where she had been. The applause faded, replaced by an awkward, heavy silence. The guests exchanged glances, the evening's frivolity utterly shattered. Julian Vanderlyn, the millionaire who owned everything, stood utterly bankrupt. He had mocked a maid and discovered a queen. He had offered marriage as a joke, and lost something far more valuable, his own illusion of superiority, and perhaps the chance to know the extraordinary woman who had just danced the truth of her soul into his gilded cage. The secret wasn't just her talent, it was the depth of character his wealth could never buy, and the devastating cost of his own arrogance. The ballroom, once a symbol of his power, now felt like a monument to his profound, irrevocable mistake. And somewhere in the quiet corridors below, Elena walked on, her secret no longer hidden, her dignity intact, leaving the millionaire and his hollow world far behind. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to ACA Storytales for more emotional stories.